Hi guys, welcome back. It's Mrs. Peterson, that lady who teaches art, and today we're going to review the element of art called shape. So shape, I'm going to tell you what it is and what it isn't. A few years ago I took a class at a conference about teaching kids about vocabulary, and I learned that when we teach you new words, not only do you need to know what it is, but you also need to know what it's not. So what is shape? Shape needs to be closed. And so what it would not be is something that's open. So I want you to draw off to the side here a little shape like this. And then we're going to put that would be a line. It's almost closed. It's just not quite closed right there. And so that makes it a line instead of a shape. Something else that it is that it's 2D, or we would call that flat. So it's not 3D. A shape that's 3D would be like a cube. That would not be flat. So that is not a shape. Those are called forms in art class. Okay, now we're going to just review some basic shapes. This is going to help you not only in math class with your geometry sections, but it's also going to help you on like the big state tests because this vocabulary tends to be on there. So the first one is a circle, and you don't have to draw a perfect circle like Leonardo da Vinci, but I do want you to know that every circle is 360 degrees. That's why if someone does like a flip and they land it, they might call that a 360. It's because they made a whole revolution all the way around. All right, triangle is a three-sided shape. You have triangles like this, where you would have those two sides equal. Those are called isosceles triangles. Or you could have a right triangle, or there's lots of different kinds of triangles. But a right triangle would have this corner marked with that little square in the corner, and that indicates 90 degrees. So I've seen before on some of the state exams, they would have a triangle like that. They would have 60 in this corner, and then they would be asking you, what is the measurement of the corner over here? And I've had students raise their hand and say, Ms. Peterson, I don't have enough information. Well, actually you do. Every triangle is 180 degrees. So if I add up what I know, I can find what's missing to get to 180. That little square is 90. And then the other part that I know is 60. And if I add those two up, that's 150. So to get to 180, I would need 30 more degrees. So my question mark would equal 30 degrees in that one. Okay, a square. A square is a quadrilateral. A quadrilateral is a four-sided shape, and it's a very special four-sided shape because all the sides are the same. And then, of course, you could mark all the corners with little squares for the 90 degree. You typically only see it in one of the corners. A rectangle is another quadrilateral, and a rectangle just says that opposite sides are the same length. So if I marked it like this, that would be wrong. But if I went back and did this, then that tells me that these two sides are the same length and these two sides are the same length, and all the corners are 90 degrees. Stars, you can have a five-sided star like that, or you can have a six-sided star. This one's easier for younger students to draw sometimes. A semicircle. The semi means half. So when you have a semicircle, it's like half of a circle. A diamond, you're going to have shape like that. It can also be like really skinny at the top and long at the bottom, but opposite sides are going to be the same length. So if it was like that, maybe it could even be that all the sides are the same length, like a square, except that your corners are not going to be 90-degree corners like a square. All right, a trapezoid is a shape that's a quadrilateral, which means it has four sides, but it only has one side of parallel lines. So in this case, these two lines are parallel, but these two are not. And then an organic shape is just any kind of blob kind of shape. It doesn't have rules to follow like the other ones. A pentagon, all the sides are going to be the same length, and there's 5 of them, and that's a pentagon. And that reminds me of the Pentagon in Washington, D.C. I've never seen it in person yet, but I do wish to. And they built that building because we have 5 branches of the military. But actually, President Trump just made a 6th one during his presidency. So now we actually have 6, but the Pentagon is still a 5-sided shape. Next, we have a six-sided shape with all the sides being the same length. This is a hexagon. And I remember this one because of the X, and in 6 there's an X. So that's my memory clue, because otherwise I can never remember that one. The next one is called a heptagon, or some people call it a septagon. And it's a 7-sided shape. In Finding Dory, there's an octopus, except one of her tentacles is missing, so she calls herself a septopus. So that's one of the ways that I remember this one. Sept means 7. And in Greek, you can translate an S as an H, just like semi. We're going to find out when we get to forms that semi can also be hemi, and it's the same. It's an S or an H at the beginning, same prefix there. All right, the next one is an octagon, and all of those of you who wish to take your driving test, you better know that stop signs are octagons. And then we have our 9-sided shape. And this word looks very much like the word 9. It's an Nonagon, nonagon. And then our last one is a 10-sided shape. And I remember this one because 10 years is called a decade. And the same thing starts this, decagon. An ellipse is just like an oval. A parallelogram is a 4-sided shape. A square is actually a parallelogram because opposite sides are parallel. A rectangle is actually a parallelogram. It's a 4-sided shape where opposite sides are parallel. But it can also be a shape like this, where opposite sides are the same length and parallel, but your corners are not 90 degrees. So that's usually what I draw for a parallelogram. And then organic, I just put 2 on there because there's any number of strange things you could draw that don't follow the regular rules above. So just draw 2 of those so that you know that there's not one specific organic shape. Okay, I want to talk to you just really quick about our months in our calendar. So we have a list of months here, January through December, and I just wrote like the number that we tend to call them, the first month, second, third. But then I wanted to talk to you a little bit about what is going on here, because sept we just talked about was 7, and oct we just talked about was 8, and nov that kind of looks like 9, and dec we know for sure is 10. So what in the world, how did our 10th month become our 12th? And so forth. What in the world happened? Well, you guys, it used to be that it went from June straight to September. There was no July, there was no August. And what happened was Julius Caesar came around. He conquered the entire known world, and he decided he was going to take a few days from each month and celebrate his birthday. So there went in July. And then when he was long gone, his son, Augustus Caesar, was like, well, if my dad gets a month to celebrate his birthday, I want a month to celebrate mine. So he did the same thing. He went and took a couple days from all the rest of the months and put in August. And so before these 2 guys, September actually was our 7th month. It kind of makes sense. Sept, 7, oct, 8. But they really screwed us up because we think of these as 9, 10, 11, 12, but really they are based on the Greek numbers. So that's just a little side note, but something that helps me remember what those prefixes mean. All right, guys, that is your review of shape.